as they can. So good evening and welcome everyone. I'm Lena Rubin, Programming Assistant at Village Preservation. I'm so glad you're all here with us for our virtual Jane's Walk this evening. A quick bit about Village Preservation. We have been documenting, celebrating, and fighting for the preservation of Greenwich Village, the East Village, and NoHo since 1980. We work to expand and extend landmark and zoning protections and stop inappropriate development, while also encouraging appropriate development in our neighborhoods. We host roughly 75 programs a year, all of which are now virtual, and most of which are free and open to the public. Our events are meant to illuminate the cultural and architectural heritage, history, and depth, and the value of preservation in our communities. Village Preservation is a nonprofit, membership-based organization, so your involvement and support mean the world to us. Learn more at our website, villagepreservation.org, and please consider becoming a member or making a donation if you're able at villagepreservation.org/donate. So just a bit of Zoom protocol. Please feel free to use the chat to say hi, to tell us where you're joining from, or to raise any issues or thoughts. If you have questions specifically for our speaker, please use the Q&A function. It helps me to keep track of your questions. You could submit those at any point during the talk, and we will get to as many as possible. And so without further ado, I'm so glad to introduce our speaker for this evening. Phil Desiere, a licensed tourist guide by the Department of Consumer Affairs of the City of New York and a member of the Guides Association of New York City, enjoys sharing his passion for the Big Apple with tourists and locals alike. Phil came to the tourist guiding profession after a 35-year career as a graphic designer and art director in the publishing industry. His walking tours focus on the art and architecture, the history and tales, and the quirky characters of the Big Apple. Being a tour guide is the best job he has ever had. From the age of 10, Phil wanted to live in Greenwich Village. For more than 41 years, he has lived, loved, laughed, and learned in the city's most storied neighborhood. So I'm going to kick it off to you, Phil. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I do appreciate this opportunity to share with everyone the art, the public art that we have. Thank you again, Lena. We have in our subways art that is yours and mine, and we are privileged here in the village to have a number of stations with subway art. And I am going to show you a map that of the stations that we are going to be visiting. We are going to be visiting 9 of them. There's art at each and every one, and at one stop, as you can see, stop number 8, there's 2 art installations. We're going to start at Houston Street, and here we go, Houston, and I will, at the start of each stop, when we move from station to station, I will have an identifying tablet to let you know that we have moved on to the next stop. This installation is titled Platform Diving. Deborah Brown is the artist, and it is a glass mosaic. A glass mosaic is one of the more common art forms that we have in the subway. Ceramic mosaic is another one. Michelangelo called mosaics the eternal art. And we have mosaics dating from ancient Greece and Rome. So Michelangelo, as he was with so many things, was correct about that. The artworks will stand up to the demands, the abuse that the subway can throw at them. This is a caption that is in the subway station at Houston Street. It is most of these every art installation has a caption. Most of them are near the turnstiles. If you don't find it there, do keep looking for the caption. This one is not exactly near this turnstile, but it's there. I would like to point out the fabricator, Miata Mosaic, because there's an amusing story. When Deborah Brown was, when she got the commission for this artwork, she didn't know how to go about it. So she looked through one of those old-fashioned things, a telephone book, and she found Miata Mosaics. They are located in Carmel, New York, and they have had a long and fruitful history with the MTA Arts and Design department. Steve Miato, who founded the company, although I've never met the man, I have seen him in videos, and he seems like a really nice guy. Okay, this artwork has a rather whimsical and lighthearted quality to it. When Ms. Brown was given the commission, she had just finished a series of paintings about water life, about the water life. Excuse me, I'm going to get a drink of water. About the sea and the creatures in the sea. And she married that to explore how these same creatures would inhabit the world that we inhabit when we are underground. Here we have a manatee waiting for the subway. These look like whales, a mother and child. Each one has its own title. This is diving platform of platform diving. Morning Rush shows, these look like, are they seals? I think they might be seals. They're accompanying the rush hour traffic. And here we have turtles. Turtles ride for free. And here we have two octopi. This is a curious title, Eye Opener. This is on the downtown side. The previous ones were on the uptown side. There are 7 in total. This is really cute. This, I guess it's a porpoise and her calf. Family outing. They're taking the subway. Maybe they're going to the aquarium. Although the one doesn't go to the aquarium in Brooklyn. And this is so cute. Here we have a, I guess this is a manatee again, or maybe it's a whale. Have you ever done that? Looked over a fellow writer's shoulder and read the paper or the book that that person is reading. And here we have the whale doing the exact same thing. Here we have some of the details of that. You can see in these details small bits of glass that are used to make up the overall picture. It's often asked of me when I have live and in-person tours if these are put together on site. They are not put together on site. They are put together in a studio. Miata Mosaic works with a company in a fabricating company in Italy, and they communicate with each other, sometimes in person. The artists often fly to the studio in Italy, or sometimes the MTA uses a company in Munich, and the artist can fly there and work with the fabricators more closely. And I'm sure, and today it's probably done by Zoom or some other video conferencing technique, in addition to in-person contact. We're going to move on to Christopher Street, Sheridan Square, also New York University. And we're going to start with the banding at the top of the platform wall. And this image here you'll find at Christopher Street, and it is based on this illustration. I often ask my in-person guests if they know what this is. if they know what it is. It was the Newgate prison that was at the corner of what is now Christopher Street and Greenwich Street. And it is now preserved in ceramic mosaic. These mosaics dating from 1914 are made of ceramics and not glass, an equally tough material. These images do have legends that identify the individuals. There are 4 panels. Each of the panels is divided into 3 sections. We're going to deal with rebels first and bohemians. And because we do have the luxury of looking at these online, we will also take a closer look at the downtown side, which we can't do when we're live and in person, because all of my tours are designed to enter the system with only one swipe of the Metro card, and we navigate the system through a series of connections and transfers. Rebels, here are the 3 sections of 3 that make up Rebels. And the artist was Lee Brosgold. He designed these along with the help of students from PS 41 on West 11th Street and 6th Avenue. And the children were selected by an art teacher in the school, and they drew these historic figures with the guidance of the artist and the art teacher. The first one we're going to talk about is the left-hand panel, Emma Goldman. She lived in the East Village at 208 East 13th Street. And Henrietta Rodman. This is Emma Goldman, and this is Henrietta Rodman there. And Henrietta Rodman was a teacher. She was a reforming teacher. She graduated from Teachers College at Columbia University, and she was born in Queens. Emma Goldman at one point was labeled by the FBI as the most dangerous woman in the country. We're going to go on to the center panel, and here we have Thomas Payne. Thomas Payne is the center figure here. Thomas Payne lived at 2 addresses in the village, 309 Bleecker Street and 59 Grove Street. 59 Grove Street is where he died, and that today is Marie's Crisis, the piano bar, and this is the plaque that is outside of the building where Marie's Crisis is. That is not the building where Thomas Payne lived and died, but that building stands on the site where he did live. These 2 figures here, this is Barney Josephson and this is Billie Holiday. Barney Josephson founded Cafe Society in 1938 at 1 Sheridan Square. That space also later in the 1980s housed the Ridiculous Theater Company. Cafe Society was a radical idea at the time. It was the first integrated nightclub in New York City, and it's where Billie Holiday first performed a song titled Strange Fruit, and this was an anti-racist song, and it was also against lynching. Here's a picture of Miss Holiday singing at the club, and you can see in the background here similar art for the poster, and I like their tagline, the wrong place for the right people. Very interesting. I'd like to point out the background, what is going on in this image, and also the first one that we looked at. This These are the depictions of the Stonewall riots. Mr. Brosgold, the artist, did cover, he smashed together so many individuals from different centuries and different events that took place in the village. And it's the artist's prerogative that he did this. And it's really quite a wonderful effect. Well, here we have the artist with his son, Royal Young, who's also an artist, and they're standing next to the center panel of this part of the installation. And here we have the third part of this mural, and we have John Reed. John Reed wrote his first-hand account of the Russian Revolution in Greenwich Village. The title of it is 10 Days That Shook the World. And he wrote it at number 1 Patchen Place, just off of 10th Street, across the street from the Jefferson Market Library. And what's going on in the background of this section? This is a gay pride march. And here I have a photograph from a recent gay pride march. Have you ever attended a salon? Well, tonight you're going to attend a salon given by Mabel Dodge. That's what these three sections are of this mural. One thing I'd like to point out is the borders on all of these. They're really quite wonderful. Do take note of those when we have the close-ups of them. We're going to start with the center panel, and here we have the Bohemians. Mabel Dodge held her, she called them after her Wednesday evenings at her home at 23 Fifth Avenue. And she held them for over a period of 3 years, from 1913 to 1916. Mabel Dodge was a wealthy socialite, and she attracted the bohemians, writers, actors, to her salons. And she welcomed people such as Max Eastman, who was a publisher. He published The Masses, a political and literary journal, as well as George Cook. George Cook is pictured here. He was a producer and a director and a playwright, and he was one of the founding members of the Provincetown Players on Cod, which eventually became the Provincetown Theater on McDougal Street, south of Washington Square. You'll notice that in this photograph of Mr. Cook and in the mosaic, he is holding an animal. Well, this animal that he's holding in the mosaic is a dog, and he moved to Greece, and that's what he's wearing, a traditional Greek outfit costume in the photograph. But he was bitten by this dog, his dog, and Mr. Cook died of rabies. So that's his demise is immortalized on a New York City subway wall. And you can see the artist took some liberties with this photograph of Mabel Dodge. She's seated cross-legged in a very Swami-like position, but she's much more colorful in the mosaic than she is in the photograph, even though the photograph is a black and white one. We're going to move on to the left-hand panel from the Bohemians. And this figure here in the seated in the chair, this is Margaret Anderson. Margaret Anderson was the founder and editor of the Little Review, and she lived with her partner, her lover, at 27 West 8th Street. And her magazine, The Little Review, was the first to serialize James Joyce's Ulysses, and which had been banned for obscenity in the US. But if you notice, she's holding in the photograph a checkered bag, and she has one here in the, she's wearing a turban in both the photograph and mosaic. George Dell is the figure in the background. He lived at 11 Christopher Street, and he was a manager editor of a radical magazine titled The Masses. One of my favorite American painters, John French Sloan. He's dancing with Edna St. Vincent Millay right here, and she is holding the comedy mask because of her involvement with the Cherry Lane Theater. She lived around the street from the Cherry Lane Theater when she lived in the Village. She lived at 75.5 Bedford Street, which is the narrowest house in New York City. We're going to go on to the third panel. And here we have, this is Hippolyte Hovel on the far left-hand side of the panel. He was an anarchist, and he was also a waiter. He's dressed like a waiter. He waited at a restaurant on Washington Square. The next figure here is one of my favorites. This is Marcel Duchamp as his alter ego. Rose C'est la Vie was the alter ego's name. And at first, when I put this tour together, I couldn't figure out who this was. But during one of the live tours, one of my guests did manage to find it online. And I'm so grateful that the person did. And I do welcome additional information that any of my tour guests might want to add to any of these tours. So this is Rose C'est la Vie. This center figure is an actress. She was an actress in the 19th century. She's a center figure, and her name is Ada Clare. She lived from 1834 to 1874, and she was a figure at Pabst's Cellar on Broadway, and she was known as the Queen of the Bohemians. And this figure is Eugene O'Neill. He's holding the tragedy mask because so much of his work is tragic. And this is Gertrude Vanderbilt Whitney, Anderson Cooper's grand aunt. She is mostly known for having founded the Whitney Museum of American Art, but she also had her studio on West 8th Street, 8 West 8th Street, where the first home for the museum was also located. We're going to jump the tracks, and we're going to look at some of the downtown murals. Here we have, this is titled The Founders, and these two figures here, whoops. Here we have, this is a man named Wouter van Twiller, and he was Dutch, and he owned a great deal of land in the Village. This is a Lenape Indian, and the Lenapes grew tobacco in the Village area in what is now the meatpacking district. The center panel of this mural, we see the bottom part of the Washington Arch. The center figure is an actor. His name was Ira Aldridge. He was a Shakespearean actor, and he performed at the African Grove Theater at Mercer and Bleecker Streets. And it was the first resident African-American theater in the United States. These two figures in the arch, the one on the left is Henry James, the novelist. He was born at Washington Place. His grandmother lived at 18 Washington Square North. And he also wrote a novel titled Washington Square. And he became friends with this guy on the right-hand side. That is John Lafarge. He was the artist who designed murals and stained glass windows He is responsible for the altarpiece at the Church of the Ascension on the corner of Fifth Avenue and West 10th Street. And he is also responsible for the stained glass windows at Judson Memorial Church, just south of Washington Square. And Mr. Lafarge has a connection to the subway. It was his son, Christopher Grant Lafarge, who was the partner in the architectural firm of Hines and Lafarge, and this firm designed the first subway stations in 1904. Whoops, we're going to go on up. We forgot the third panel. The third panel, this shows a man named John Brown Russfirm, and he has newspapers there. He looked like a newsboy selling papers on the street. He founded the Freedom's Journal, the first Black-owned and operated newspaper in the United States, and it was published at Varick Street in the Village. And this figure here who is chopping down the tree, that is Gouverneur Morris. He was a founding father of the United States. He signed the Articles of Confederation and the US Constitution. He wrote the preamble to the Constitution. And he was part of the commissioner's plan, the commission that set up the grid that makes up Manhattan streets. And the reason why he has an accent when he looks like he's chopping down a tree is because the New York State legislature gave the commission the authority to go on to private people's property and fell trees if they did not welcome them to establish the grid and to survey the land in order to make the grid up. We're going to go on to the next three panels, and they are the providers. The providers here on the third, the far left panel of this one, we have several figures. One of them is Alan Ostronsky. He is pictured here in the back. He was a benevolent landlord. He helped artists and poets and actors live in their apartments without paying rent. And that was one of the reasons why the apartment buildings did go bust after a while, but he did help people out that way. And his daughter, Lenore, married Ira Gershwin in 1926. The person here whose face is on the locomotive, that is Charles Brace. He was a Protestant minister, and he founded the Children's Aid Society in 1853. And many of these schools and the homes that the society founded are still in operation. The reason why a train is depicted in these panels is because the Children's Aid Society used trains to transport New York's vulnerable children from the slums of the city to country homes. This figure here on the right of the left-hand panel, that is Paul Popham. Gay men had been flocking to the village for decades, and he helped to found the Gay Men's Health Crisis. He was its first president, and he continued to work for the GMHC until the disease age claimed his life. In the center panel, we have a woman named Mary Kinsbury Simkowski, and she was the founder of Greenwich House in 1902, which helped struggling immigrants adjust to their new surroundings. The third panel here, this is Fiorella LaGuardia. He was born in Greenwich Village, and he is paired with two immigrants. He served as a translator for immigrants at Ellis Island. And the final figure here on the right-hand side of the right-hand panel is Lucy Mitchell. She was an educator, and she founded what eventually became known as the Bank Street College of Education. We're going to go on. Oh, here are some examples of Lee Brosgill's other artwork in the city. He is a big participator in public art in the city. Now we are going on to my favorite installation in the system, and that is at 14th Street and 8th Avenue. This is the artist Tom Otterness. His Brooklyn studio is in the Gowanus section, and this is the 20th anniversary of this installation. You've probably been there. You're probably familiar with these bronze figures that are scattered throughout the station, both at the platform level and on the mezzanine level. Mr. Otterness took his inspiration from some of the cartoons that Thomas Nast created in the 1870s, that ultimately led to the downfall of Tweed. And you can see the similarities in the illustration and the bronze figure. Today, the term 1% is part of our lexicon, but it wasn't so even as early as 20 years ago in 2001. But Mr. Otterness was calling attention to the inequities in our system. And here we have a plutocrat giving a penny or 1% to the little people. We have a rat nibbling on a coin, and I do like his interpretation of the phones. No longer are there public phones in the system. We have these lobsters with people in its claws, and the exploitation of a urban legend, the crocodile coming out from the sewers of the subway, eating one of those plutocrats, one of those money bags, and the other one is just passively standing by, allowing it to happen. Here's another version of another scene. And in the background, you can see there are some anarchists who are sawing down one of the girders. Here's Mr. Otterness. He is in his studio positioning these figures. He was contracted for only 75 figures, but he wound up giving more than double that. I think there's 170 of them. And his wife had to stop him because she said he was spending their daughter's inheritance. And some people, myself, engage with this art, and others ignore it completely. We're going to take the L train from 14th Street and 8th Avenue to Union Square at 14th Street. And the title of this work is Framing Union Square, and it is conceptual. It isn't so much figurative or recognizable, but wherever you see these red frames in the station, that is the art for this station. What the artist has done, Mary Miss is her name, and this dates from 1998. She has helped to preserve within these frames what the station looked like when it was constructed in the 19-teens. Early on, the art of the subway was simply directional or identifying, and we will see some of that identifying art in a little while. These 6 sections of a wall that were once at the platform level form the centerpiece of this installation. Mary Miss wanted this to be an architectural find, like we were exploring a dig in an architectural pit. And here we have those, you can see what makes up those walls, the concrete, the brick, the rubble, the stone that make up those walls. Here it is from another angle. And here is that identifying art, the 14th Street art, the eagle holding the shield with 14th Street, with 14 on it. And the IRT, which owned this line, the number 456 line, in the early, up until 1940, when the city consolidated all of them, they got their money worth out of that design because it was used at 4th Street. You can see at 33rd Street on the 6th line. I have this a photograph that I found online. I'm not sure if the Brooklyn Bridge plaques are still there, but you can see that it's a very very popular, very American image. On we go. We're going to 8th Street and New York University stop. This is an award-winning installation. It was awarded the best art, public art, for 2004, 2 years after it was installed. The artist is Tim Snell, and the title of it is Broadway Diaries. This is glass mosaic. Mr. Snell says that he likes the circle form. I do too. And you can see within these circles, they are portals into the neighborhood where people are always losing their umbrellas, and Mr. Snell makes note of those on the street. I think this is a very clever use of the space, with a man's hat being blown off and the dog is tugging at the leash. Here we have the Washington Arch in New York University and a student in front of the NYU building. And here we have a student wearing an I Love New York t-shirt. I Love New York is going to come up a little later in the tour. Here we have some tourists. The wife looks like she's crossed, and the kid is just pointing up to something in the sky. The Public Theater, and Cooper Union and Mr. Cooper's Memorial. We have the Alamo Cube at the Astor Place. And notice these bicycles. The bicycle is a theme on the uptown side. And here we have the artist with his dog Zero, the same dog that we saw earlier tugging at the leash. And we have the artist's illustrations for 3 of the vignettes that we saw on the walls. We're going to Prince Street. And this is an installation by 2 artists, Janet Zweig and Edward Del Rosario. The title of it is Carrying On, and it dates from 2004. And this is not a mosaic. These are not mosaics, but these are made up of steel, marble, and a red slate. And they form a frieze along the wall of both the uptown and the downtown side. These sometimes could be dismissed because they're awfully small in person, but I do like to take a close look at them because they are based on actual photographs, over 300 photographs that were taken by the artists of people, New Yorkers, maybe visitors too, on the streets of the city. Here we have kids on the street. I think this is quite poignant. Here we have an elderly person in a wheelchair being pushed, and here we have the opposite at the other end of the life cycle, a mother pushing a stroller. And you have an older woman with her push cart, her grocery shopping, behind a younger woman, and we have someone. So this is the marble. The figures are made up of the stainless steel. This is laser cut steel, and then the red slate makes some of the accent pieces. Oh, very much like this one. Someone carrying a surfboard on the streets of New York. We have some people cleaning up here. This one looks like a chimney sweep with what he's carrying. So the title, behind the title, Carrying On, there are three interpretations, is that people do carry things on the subway, in the streets. We're always carrying things. When I can leave the house without carrying something, I feel liberated. But we're also, New Yorkers like to talk and talk and talk. We like to carry on talking. As a tour guide, I know about that. And also because of the time when this was installed, shortly after 9/11, New York wanted to carry on, to get on with the business of living after that tragic event. So those three interpretations have been applied to the title of this work. This is one of my favorite images, dragging a Christmas tree along the streets. But I do it the easy way. When I bring home my Christmas tree, I use a hand cart from my building's basement, and there is our doorman, Ramon, a really swell guy. Love him a lot. Also there at Prince Street, a image of the subway, both the street level, the stairs, and the platform level have been recreated. There's one on the uptown and one on the downtown side as well. And here are some close-ups of that one on this is the downtown side. On we go to Canal Street. We're pushing the boundaries here. Canal Street, when I did my research for all of these, and I do research the routes and the subway stops themselves and the art, I asked one of the Chinese passengers at the stop what these two Chinese characters mean, and they translate into China Village, Chinatown, China Village, that characters mean. The artist is Big Lee. He is known for his pictograms, and we have, I like this one, nacho and American cheese, the top one, and then the bottom one, this is the Bill of Rights, all in Morse code, in his own unique style. These are along the frieze of on the platform level, and these interlocking teapots do translate as good life. They are the symbols for good life. And so this is the Canal Street original identifying tablet, the canal, and the illustration that inspired it. Here is the main image, the main work of art at this station. It is at the transfer point between the R and the N train. The title, Empress Voyage, refers to an historic voyage that was made from New York Harbor to China in the date of February 22nd, 1794. The English, after they lost the revolution, they closed off trade to the newly formed United States, and the country had to search for other partners. And they went to China to do that. And the color of these ceramic tiles, blue and white, are traditional ceramic colors for Chinese porcelain. We have, again, the pictograms, and these represent what was traded when that ship left the harbor. It things with it such as silver, because that was the basis for the Chinese currency at the time. And it also took the men who were financing the voyage. They found out that ginseng was a popular, something popular in China, and it went, tons of ginseng went to China, American ginseng. And what came back was silk, tea, and porcelain, among other things. In addition to tangible things that were traded, also ideas get traded, such as justice and religion. Here's an angel. And so not just tangible items, but also ideas get exchanged as well. We're going to move on to Broadway Lafayette, and we're going to see something called Signals by Mel Chin for 1997. This is also at a transfer point between the J line and the B, D, F, and M lines, and the number 6 too. So the Signals represents the indigenous people who lived in the area at the time of the European settlers. And this is a close-up of some of those characters that are above the floor line all the way up to the ceiling. These are smoke signals rendered abstractly in ceramic tiles. Now, this is the centerpiece of this work. This is, these are the signals. These stainless steel structures, they light up, and here are photographs showing them lit. They signal, just like the smoke signals. These are like, these represent campfires, fires that make the smoke signals, and they light up when a train approaches, either uptown or downtown. In either direction, they light up to signal that a train is approaching. There's a play on words that we get with this installation. Okay, when we go to our next installation, I always like to say, you have to look up as we go up the escalator. This is titled Hive by Leo Villarreal. It is at the transfer point between the B, the D, the F line, and the number 6 at Broadway Lafayette up to Bleecker Street. And you get these wonderful colors. These are LED tubes, and it's the artist Leo Villarreal who programs these to have these various colors that you see here. They're really quite wonderful. And another one. And this is a picture here. You see him test driving the work during installation. In 2012, the artist also had this installation in Madison Square titled Buckyball. It was an homage to Buckminster Fuller, and he's also had work displayed in San Francisco. These are the identifying tablets at the Bleecker Street station, where we will transfer to the 6 line. And notice here in this B, we have an homage to our Dutch roots. These are tulips. The tulip season is just coming to an end here in New York, but we have permanent tulips at the Bleecker Street stop. On to Astor Place, which I think is everyone's favorite because of these guys, the beavers. Now notice in these 1906 terracotta identifying tablets, these sections here, these diamonds, these squares, because they are going to figure into the work. Milton Glaser is or Glaser? Is it Glaser or Glaser? The title is Untitled, and it's one of the very first of the artworks, 1986. This program to install art in the subway system dates from the early 1980s, when a law was passed called the percent law, and it mandated that 1% of the budget for a new station or for a renovated station had to be put toward art in that station. And the art is porcelain enamel on stainless steel background. This is the man who created the I Love New York logo, and we saw the I Love New York logo on a t-shirt of a NYU student at the 8th Street stop, and it was this man, Milton Glaser, who designed that in 1977. Some people think he just designed it for the city, but it was a statewide tourism push. And then he took that same design and told the world that we love New York even more after the tragedy of 9/11. This is the heart represents Manhattan Island, and there in the lower left-hand corner, or the southwest corner of the island, that is the tragedy of the Twin Towers. Here are the metal panels, the stainless steel panels with the enamel designs on them. We can see the influence of, you can even see here in the photographs, you can see those here, those corner images. He simply expanded these, gave them new colors, and he enlarged them in abstract ways. This is on the downtown side, and it's the entrance to the Kmart there. And it's also very fitting that he got the commission for this, because also above the station is the Cooper Union School, and Mr. Glaser is a graduate. Both he and his wife are graduates of that school. So it's very fitting that his Untitled is at this location. There's another one. Again, that same triangle, diamond-shaped work, simply enlarged in order to give it maximum impact. And he's played with it, he's rearranged it, given it colors that it didn't have before. But it's really quite striking. Many people ask me about books for this art, and here is the front cover of New York's Underground Art Museum. I like all this, the art museum at the core of the Big Apple. One of the authors, Sandra Bloodworth, she is the president of the MTA Arts and Design program. And here are some of the inside pages. All of these examples are on different tours. I have 5 subway art tours, numbered 1 through 5, and then I also have an art tour of the 2nd Avenue subway art. So it's what subway art tours 1 through 5 and the 2nd Avenue subway art, but all 3 of these examples are on different tours of mine. I thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you enjoyed this. I have always had an interest in this art. I've had an interest in art since I was a young child, and I channeled that through a commercial art career, and I do enjoy having that opportunity to share this art with everyone on the tour today. And if you're at all interested in taking one of these tours live, please get in touch with me. And I'll turn it back over to Lena right now.
Great. Thank you so much, Phil. That was such a wonderful presentation. And it really gave a new light to all these subway stations that we see all the time, but don't always fully notice. So thanks again. And yeah, I'd love to get to some of the questions that have been asked. So let's see. Arlene had a question. Arlene wants to know how does an artist get considered for their subway art? What is the selection process, and who from the MTA is doing the selecting?
The people who do the selecting are artists themselves. They're not bureaucrats. They're not bureaucrats. They are artists themselves. They staff the MTA Arts Design department, and they get selected in a way that is the MTA is aware or conscious of artists who are active at any point in the process of their putting together the stations for these renovations or creating new stations. And they will approach 5 artists and they'll say, we have you in mind for the art at such and such a station. Give us your ideas. And the artists will submit some ideas, and then from those submitted, those 5 submitted, they will select a finalist. Some artists, in the case, there is one artist in Brooklyn, his name is Ben Sneed, and he was selected for a project in the Bronx, but he turned that down in favor of putting art in a subway station in Brooklyn, where he works and lives. So they do have that option, and they'll get back. The MTA Arts and Design program will get back to them. In this case, they did with Ben Sneed. But that is the process. It's not, to my knowledge, it's not it's not to everyone. The MTA does have a website where artists can upload samples of their work or links to their work to a website. And that's another way, it's a more modern way of the MTA being aware of artists in the active at any one time.
Great, thanks for that explanation. Let's see, so Eric has a question. Eric wants to know, do you find that Philip Ashford Coppola's work is still a useful resource?
I'm not familiar with Philip Ashford Coppola. I'm not sure. I can't say because I'm not familiar with that.
Okay, sure. Eric, feel free to chime in and maybe add some more details to the question if you'd like. Let's see. So Tish wants to know, are there explanations near the actual panels so that the casual subway rider can identify the people depicted?
Yes, there are legends for the ones at Christopher Street, Sheridan Square. There are legends that will explain or identify each of the main figures in each of the panels on both the uptown and downtown side. And that's the case also for some in Harlem on two different tours. And they too have legends that will identify the figures in their panels. So you can look for those. I think one of the legends is missing at Christopher Street. So you're going to be left in the dark for one of them. But I think 3 of the 4 are still in place. But do look for those.
Great, thank you. Scott wants to know, this is a good question, is there special maintenance attention paid to these projects? Scott is saying that I always noticed that the 14th Street figures seemed uncared for. So I guess just wondering, what the maintenance practices are for these works of art.
I don't know if there's anything specific. Most of the art does have, it is in pretty good shape. I've been at 14th Street and 8th Avenue stop as well, and I've seen stickers stuck onto some of these figures, but I've made a point of then returning and being conscious to look for that figure. And in all cases, the damage, if the sticker had been removed. So I think maybe in regular cleaning of the subway, and that does happen, believe it or not, the subway is cleaned. I don't know how, recently because of COVID, there had been regular cleaning, but I think in the process of regular cleaning, some conscientious worker will see something that's wrong and address it, will take care of it. I have been to recently in Brooklyn, a stop that is on my subway art tour number 5. And unfortunately, it looks as if there was deliberate vandalism that took place. It looked like someone took a hammer or some blunt object and broke the glass on several of the mosaic panels. But by and large, the art at all the stations is in good repair. And like I said, because it's steel or glass or ceramic, they can just be hosed down. And some of the dirt and the grime of the city can just be hosed off of it when the rest of the station is hosed down. So I don't know if there's anything specific, but I do know some attention is paid to it.
Great, thank you. So I'm seeing that some people are asking again for the PayPal link. So I can put that in the chat. I know there's kind of a lot coming up in the chat, but I can definitely copy and paste that again. But Phil, this is actually a question for you about people tipping you. Someone wanted to know if there's a option for Zelle payment.
Oh, no, I don't have an account there.
Okay. Well, I can follow up with the person who asked, and we can find some way to work it out. Thank you. Let's see what else. Rena is asking who is the artist for the mural with Duchamp and Gertrude Vanderbilt Whitney, and when was it installed? I think it was Christopher Street.
Yes, that's at Christopher Street and Sheridan Square. And the artist's name is Lee Brosgold, and it dates from the 1994. Lee Brosgold is the artist, and the title of it is very simple, The Greenwich Village Murals.
Great, thank you. So seeing some more questions coming up, and just in the interest of time, I won't be able to ask all of them. But let's see. We have a good question from Alice. Was the art always part of the design of the subway from the beginning of the subway's history, or has it been added in different periods later on in the subway's history?
Well, all the commissioned art that we saw today, that only dates from the beginning of the 1980s. But things such as the panels of the beavers, and I showed the image of the prison, the Newgate prison at Christopher Street, that was part of the original subway. Although something like the Beavers or at Columbus Circle, you may have noticed there's a ship, there's a sailing ship in the band at the top of the subway walls. Although those were not intentionally used as identifying markers, they did come to serve that purpose. They were used as a decorative element in the early part of the subway system. But then, because of budget constraints, those decorative elements they were abandoned. And both for budget reasons and for stylistic reasons, the subway turned to more streamlined designs in the 30s, the 20s. They were in the 30s when the subways were created. There was a depression, and there wasn't much money to begin with. So whatever was created then was in a very pared down style, and you can see that on the F line or the A, C, E lines. You look at the lettering and those stations. They have very sparse decoration. You're not going to see anything like you would on the 4, 5, 6 or the 1, 2, 3, the original stations that were designed by Lafarge and Hines. But there's always been, especially in the early part of the station, if you look behind me, I'm in City Hall. That's the original subway station at City Hall. That was part of what was called the City Beautiful movement in the late 1890s and the early 1900s. And the idea of the City Beautiful movement was that if you create beautiful spaces, people will behave in beautiful ways that may or may not have come about, that may or may not have been the result. But it was an idea. It was an idealistic way of viewing the world and architecture. So just look how beautiful that is behind me. So that was the showcase. So the City Hall station was the showcase for the subway system in 1904 when it opened. And then they became less and less as money became less and less, and styles, people's tastes changed too. Our taste in art changes over time. So
definitely. Well, thanks for that. So as I mentioned before, we have so many great questions. Unfortunately, we can't get to all of them. But Phil, some people are asking if you could share, what other kinds of tours you do and other things that you offer. People are curious. Okay,
sure. As I said, I do have my subway art tours, but I have tours of Greenwich Village. I have a general Greenwich Village tour. I have a gay Greenwich Village tour. I also have a gay village pub crawl or bar crawl. And I have a tour of Central Park. I have one of my favorite ones is my tour of the art at Rockefeller Center. And I am currently putting that together actually, it's just about finished, for the Municipal Art Society. And that will be offered by the Municipal Art Society at the end of May. So if you're at all interested in that as a webinar, that will be as a virtual tour that will be offered on the last Saturday of May, which I think is the 26th. That is, I also have a Gay Graves tour I've given that virtually and in person at the Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn. And I have something that's quite unique called 5 Squares in a Circle. And it traces the progression of the city through its 5 main squares: Washington, Union, Madison, Herald, and Times Square. And we end at its most famous circle, that is Columbus Circle. 5 Squares in a Circle traces the city's progress up the island from the village to Central Park. That's pretty much most of my tours.
Those all sound like really, really wonderful offerings. Thank you so much. And again, I've put your website into the chat so that everyone has it and can check out everything else that you have to offer. I also just wanted to give another shout out to the Municipal Art Society as a partner for Jane's Walk 2021. And there's lots of other great programming going on for Jane's Walk. Thank you so much, Phil, for your wonderful talk and for all of these amazing answers. Thanks to the audience for all these questions and for joining us tonight. So Phil, unless there's anything else you'd like to add, I think we can go ahead and wrap it up for the evening.
I think we have a wrap. Thank you, Lena.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Phil. I really learned a lot and this was lovely. And thanks everyone, and take good care.
Bye.